The witch's familiar. Let's talk a little bit about what that is. Now, there is a big misconception across the internet, just across the board, and transferring over into the real world a little bit, that your familiar is an animal you adopt and deem it to be your familiar. But that is not how that works and not what that is. Sorry to say it, Fluffy that you went and picked up from the animal shelter on cat adoption day is not your familiar. 99% chance. A familiar is an entity, a spirit, or a guide that has come to you. They find you on their own when you need them, or if it's just something that you need to have in your life, or it's a spirit or entity or guide that chooses to be there to aid you and help you with your path, with your growth, with your personal development. Now, they manifest on this plane as animals because, one, that's just a lot easier. Two, be kind of weird if your familiar was another person. That's not to say it can't happen, but that would be a little bit odd. One of the reasons that they manifest most frequently as felines is because felines are more connected to the spirit world. That's easy to see most of the time when you interact with a cat and the things that they see that you don't see. Not to mention the associations that certain aspects of cats and parts of cats do have in the spiritual world. Now, most of the people who are claiming that this animal they have is their familiar, unfortunately, they are incorrect. Some of them are right, but there is a bond that forms between you and a familiar that just does not happen with a pet. Just because the cat likes to hang out on your altar, touch your cards, etc., doesn't mean that they're a familiar. That's not the same kind of bond. That's more or less just a curious cat. Now, this could be one of your higher guides that is manifesting this way. It could be a spirit that doesn't have any kind of ancestral connection to you. One theory is that the familiar spirit that comes to a witch is the spirit of a passed on witch, there to guide and aid the next generation of practitioners in the world. There are some theories that it's an ancestral spirit. There are some theories that it is your principal guide manifesting on this plane. Some say it's other entities. Now, you take that word as you will. Entity can mean a lot of different things. But those are just some of the theories about what the witch's familiar spirit really is. But it's not the animal that you choose for yourself. They find you. Now, you can go to a animal shelter and it could be a fated interaction where you do find a familiar spirit there, but it's really rare. That's normally, they're born to an animal that you already have. It's the stray or the abandoned animal that you have picked up somewhere or that hangs around and just won't go away. Those are more what your familiar spirits are going to be. And that doesn't mean that every animal that is abandoned that you find is a familiar. Just keep that in mind, because I know that people can take that phrase and run with it. That, oh, a cat was abandoned on my property. That's my familiar. That doesn't mean it's your familiar. There's a very special bond that will form between you and that familiar. There's a special connection. It's going to be different than the bond and connection that you have with a pet.